I'm not sure I'll answer exactly that question, Amit, but short pitch ball, went for the pull shot, hit my elbow, all right? That's basically the story I'm staying with, okay? So, you've heard from stalwarts, two that are sort of leading the charge in terms of what the options are. Father George, who's, sort of the father of the Indian management industry, or at least his institution is in many ways, laying out that there are these nuances that one could play with as well. So I don't wish to sort of talk about necessarily the path we at SPJIMR are looking at, because these are all open options available to us. I want to talk about this number 3,000 and some assumptions that are built in there that make me uncomfortable, frankly. So while the online numbers are fine, if you're trying to get to 3,000, in there is a notion that, hey, one way to get there is through a BBA program or an undergraduate program. Now, we all are allowed to have personal views about, education, right? So what I'm presenting here isn't necessarily an SPJIMR view. But when my two children were looking at going to college, I said, you can do anything but an undergraduate degree in business, right? Now, why did I say that? In my opinion, an undergraduate degree should focus on something which is hard and meaningful. Maybe it's physics, maybe it's math, maybe it's engineering, maybe it's arts, maybe it's history. But business to me is better done in a postgraduate setting after you've had some level of background in something more substantive. So that is basically just a fundamental problem I have with the idea of a BBA, right? It just feels like you're robbing somebody of their opportunity to build a good education that will allow them to do lots of things in the future. Instead, you're looking at it from a career point of view too early in life. So that's one issue, right? So, but I do understand BBAs are popular options and so on. So now if you sort of look at these BBAs, the other problem I think they provide is confusion. Father George talked about placements. So now if you have a BBA, you have a PGDM for people who may have done a bachelor's in commerce but have now come in for an MBA. So they're batting on a 3 or 4 years plus an immediate, no experience-based MBA. How much difference do you really have between a 4-year BBA student with no experience and a 5 years of education student with no experience, which is what you would have in the MBA programs at an early age? AICT has also changed the requirements on the PGPM, which was a 1-year program, to say it's 3 years plus experience is enough, which further muddies the waters, right, in terms of how different really are these 1-year MBA students from the 2-year MBA students, because all you're talking about is 3 years of work experience. And maybe that's a fault of being an old person here, but 3 years of work experience, you've barely started working. Maybe you found your way to where the restroom is and where the cafeteria is by then, So and you add all of these, so it just seems to me a very confusing positioning problem that we're going to be dealing with from a placement point of view and from a pedagogy point of view that I think we need to contend with. So then what are the other ways of getting to 3,000, right? The other ways of getting to 3,000 are online programs. They're potentially master's programs offered by different disciplines. And it does look like the multidisciplinary requirement can be satisfied by essentially renaming our various existing departments as schools, right? Which, okay, one could do that. But I don't know if that was in the spirit of the original NEP when they talked about having a liberal arts education that is multidisciplinary in nature. So these are some of the challenges I think we need to work through, right? And of course we need to make a decision, and we have until 2030. So at SPJIMR, we're not in any rush to pick a path, because I do think there are these paths being explored, and I'm sure from Father George I'll learn what it is that was good and bad about what they did and pick up a few lessons from there. So there's no rush per se, but these are some of the positioning and muddying issues that, my esteemed peers who are leading this charge should probably consider as they look at it. The other issue I have with NEP is really around sort of the idea of research. While it is absolutely essential that India raise its quality of research and quantity of research from the fraction that we do today, there are always unintended consequences to policies of that sort. So for example, you have a rush in what might be called predatory journals. You have a rush in totally third-rate journals that, frankly, the faculty members shouldn't spend time writing for them, nor should anybody spend time reading them. And yet there's valuable talent being wasted to create metric numbers there because that's considered as in scope. So I think we should raise also, if you're going to ask for research, we should probably say it only counts above a certain level. There are just way too many journals running around, and it's way too easy to publish whatever it is that you want. And now we're providing incentives to do so. And it's unintended set of consequences. So I think this would be another area where perhaps we can put a foot down and say, while research is important, perhaps it shouldn't just be quantity and quality. Maybe there has to be a minimum quality for the quantity as well, as opposed to what we currently have. So, so anyway, those are my contributions in here. I have the least amount of experience of all the gentlemen on this panel, so it's not my place to suggest what we do. But perhaps as a relative outsider, I can at least point out some of the things that I still find a little puzzling. All right, thank you.